Hello everyone. So we are going to enhance the application, the counter application. So as of now, in the last video, I have added the reset button. Then we have seen how the reset button works. So once you do the increment, once you click on reset, it basically reset to the original state. So all the value will turn into 0. So now let's do one thing. We're gonna add a nav bar in the top panel over the reset. So nav bar, we basically want to display the total counter we have in our application. So let's try that out. So in the counter app, I'm gonna create another component. So inside the counter app, in the components folder, I'm gonna create an app called navbar. Create a file called navbar.jsx. Okay. So I'm going to import the React component. So imrc, same approach. I'm going to create a class, cc. The name of the class is navbar. Okay. So in the we do not have any state of this navbar because we're just gonna display total counter that we can capture from the counters app. So now in the render, what are we gonna do? We're gonna add a piece of code from Bootstrap. So let's take a look here. So let's go to the Bootstrap. So let's go to Bootstrap web page. In the Bootstrap web page, if you go to documentation, so in the left panel, you're going to see all the information. So let's click on navbar. So in the navbar, it has some useful information, how to use it. So if your navbar is like this, then you can use this piece of HTML code. Then brand, I believe we need this navbar. So brand navbar, simple, because we don't have any menu item or anything. So I'm gonna copy this information as a link. Then I'll go back to my VS Code. So inside return, simply paste the code. So I'm gonna remove this as a link, save it, and it's gonna auto format for you. That's pretty much. So we added the navbar. So now we want to implement some. We want to implement this navbar into our application. So as of now, we didn't really use this app file. So we actually want to leverage this app file. So the app file we have right now, the code we have. So let's also open the index.js because we do not need that as well. So inside the app, the piece of code we have, as you see, it returns some of the information. So we're gonna get rid of everything. We do not need all this line of code. We're gonna get rid of entire line of code from the app.js. So what you can do, we're gonna do imrc. We're gonna import React component, and we're gonna make a class inside this app. So the app, we use the same concept, cc. The name of our class is app. Okay. So, and over here, we're gonna, inside the return, we're gonna add the navbar. So As of now, we have used div, so I'm gonna show it to you. Another way of grouping together all the children element is putting everything inside React.Fragment. We're gonna go over a bit about React.Fragment. What is the uses of React.Fragment? So if you go to the React's documentation page, so let's see here what is the info here. As you see, the fragments. So a common pattern in React is for a component to return multiple elements. As you see, when we return basically multiple elements. So fragments let you group a list of children without adding extra nodes to the DOM. So in counters class or counter class, what we have done inside the return, we also have multiple children element. How we return, we group them into a div. So instead of div, you can also use React.Fragment. So that's what I'm trying to do. So I'm using the React.Fragment to group together all the child element. All right, let's go back to the code. So I created the React.Fragment parent element, so I'm going to group together the child element. So at this moment I have the navbar only, so I need to import that navbar here. Import nav bar from components navbar. Cool. So now what I have here is it is a self-closing component. Okay, so now I don't have anything in navbar. Okay, so let's see. So now it's not showing because in our index.js what we have is counters. So we need to do some restructuring. So basically the way we want to structure our application, the app is going to be into the parent label, then all the other components basically will be child of that parent. So let's see if how does it look like in a diagram. If we draw a diagram, how does it look like? So as you see, the way we want our application to structure that, first the parent label is going to be app, then we have a navbar, then we have counters and we have counter. So all the value we want driven from the app bar to the counters, and from the counters to the counter, and the value we want to display into navbar, it will also be driven from the app.js app class. So this is the structure we want to follow, and we want to organize our code in that way as well. So that's why we kind of leveraging the app class in a way so that we can follow the hierarchy the way we want to. So I just added the navbar. So now let's do one thing. Index.js, let's enable call app bar. So we don't need counters. So what we're gonna do? We're gonna just simply call the apps. So we can name it apps. We can call this app. And here, instead of this, let's call Okay, and here let's print it out. Okay, so we fixed the path. So basically we are now rendering the app class. So as of now in the app class we have only the navbar. So this is how the navbar looks like. So now we need to do some restructuring. So basically the work we are performing is like multiple, we're syncing all the components together. So what of now? Let's do one thing. So we can call the counters class inside the app. So let's do that. Import counters from components counters. Okay, and after the navbar, basically we can get rid of this line of code that is auto-generated. We're gonna create a section using main tag, main HTML tag. And we can give a class name inside the main tag. Class name, we can give it to container. And the class name is container. And inside that we can call the containers element, and it is a self-closing element. Okay, as you see, everything is back. So what is the uses of main? So let's take a look. So the HTML main tag basically is simple definition, just type main. So the main tags specify the main contents of a document. So since our counters is the main contents of our document, that's why we put everything inside the main tag. The content inside the main element should be unique to the document. It should not contain any content that is repeated across documents such as sidebars, navigation links, copyright information, site logos, and search forms. There must be not more than one main element in a document. The main element must not be a dependent of an article, a site, footer, header, and nav element. It's such a useful information they have provided. So basically main is, the content inside the main should be unique in that particular document, and the main cannot be, and it should not contain any content that is repeated across the documents. So in our application, the content we have inside the main is containers. That's unique, and we didn't use anywhere else this containers tag. So now let's do some improvisation. What are the things? So as you see now, we have the app class, then we have navbar, then we have counters. Counters has counters has a state and the event handlers, and the counter class basically has some method that is only using inside this particular class. So the things we can do that move everything from counters, all the state and the event handler, into the app class. Because as per the structure, our app class is the parent label, so the child element can easily access those information using the props. So that's actually the ultimate goal. So what you can do, simply cut and paste everything from counter up to return. So all the methods and state. You can cut, go back to app. So remove the state and paste it here. Okay. So then we need to do some work here. So inside the counters, we need to call those event handler. So first thing first, let's start creating those. So we can call counters. So the counters is coming from the state, this dot state dot counters. Then we can create on reset, because we have a handle reset option. So this dot handle reset. Then we have on increment. So we are defining those event name on increment. The value is this dot handle increment. Then we can create another event called on delete, and this dot handle delete. Cool. So let's save it. It might break our application, but don't worry. No need to worry, because we are kind of perform restructuring. So now if we go back to counters class, we can simply call those using the props. So now let's take a look. If we inspect this, as you see, the structure, apps, navbar, counters. So if you click on counters using the props, what are the things you can access? As you see, you can access counters, on delete, on increment, on reset. So these are the events we just declared inside the counters element in app class. So we're gonna fix the code. We go back to counters. So what can we do? Inside here. So this dot handle reset. So we can put this dot props dot handle reset. So it's not gonna be, sorry. So this is on reset. So we're gonna put the code on reset. So let's go back to counters. So we're gonna call on reset, and we're gonna call these props dot on delete. And we're gonna call these props dot on increment, and the counter is gonna be it also coming from the props. we have a state here. So this dot props dot counter dot map counters dot map. Okay, and the counter is leave as it is. Okay, cool. So it's cleaner. So basically our state, now we move to the app class, and all the event handler method, we move to the app class. So basically all the event handler we can simply access using the props. Make sure nothing breaks. It's working. Cool, everything's working as per expectation. So now let's do more work over here. So now let's take a look. So as of now, all the implementation is working as expected. Now we're gonna learn is stateless functional components. So stateless functional components, if a function that doesn't have any state. So if we have a class that doesn't have any state, we can convert that into a stateless functional component. So I'm not gonna change everything, just for the knowledge. The implementation at present we have is perfectly all right. If you don't change it, it's perfectly all right, but still I want to give some knowledge how to implement a stateless functional component. So what I'm going to do here, so I'm going to create a functional component. So stateless functional component, there is another shortcut, it's called SFC. If you type, as you see, the intelligence shows up. So over there, give a name. So I'm going to keep the same name, nav bar. Okay. Then the return, whatever we have returned, I'm going to copy everything, put it inside, replace the return we have, and I can get rid of this class. I can get rid of this class. So it's saying that since I'm not using component, I can also get rid of this information. Okay. So let's see whether did we break anything. So save it. Nope. As you see, we have the same information as it is. So this is how we can use a stateless functional component. So this function doesn't have any state. So any class that you have, you feel like you do not need to keep it as a class. Basically, in React component, whenever you have a class, you have a state. So, but if you feel that if you have a class and you don't have any state, you can convert this to stateless functional component. So that's what we have done. So now what we want to do, we want to display the total number of counter into the navbar. So let's implement that. So now what we can do, navbar, we can create a span. So because we want to display the text, so span class name and inside class name. The class name we're gonna do, let's take a look in the Bootstrap. So the Bootstrap, we have Bootstrap, the information we are looking for is pill, so batch. So we are looking for batch. So if we go to batch, so these are the batch we are already familiar with, batch button primary variation pill badges. So we're gonna use this. So basically it's gonna show a text into the round circle. So as you see here, it's saying modify a class to make badges more rounded type. So that's what we're gonna do. So we're gonna use a secondary, so which is the color is gray. So every information, basically all the information I'm copying from here. So let me copy this, paste it inside my class name. Cool. So it's gonna be displaying here. So since I don't have any value, so it's not showing anything. Please use the color of the changes you're not observing right now. So what can I do? I can use the props and display the total counters. So before we do that, we need to go to the app class. So inside the app class, what can we do? We can implement a logic. So inside the span, we want to display the total counters. So we can implement that logic right inside the app. So inside the app, we have a navbar element. So inside that, let's create an event that will count the total number of counters. So let's name it total counters. So inside the, we can create a function right inside here, or we can create a separate function the way we have done before. So let's do that actually. So let's implement that. So inside this total counters, we're gonna add a logic that set.state.counters. Then we're gonna do filter. So inside the filter, parameter c dot value. If c dot value greater than 0, then give me the length. Give me the total length. Okay. So the logic is, so in the array we have counters array. So inside the array, let's filter the array using the following condition. The condition is if the counter dot value inside an array is more than 0, greater than 0, then give me the length of that particular counter. So right now we have the value is, so, and we also need to call this inside our navbar. So in the navbar, I just added this. So as we have changed the class into a functional stateless component, so over here we also need to have a props. So the props comes as a parameter. So props dot total counters. So how do I know? So let's inspect. Let's come to navbar. As you see, the navbar have one attribute as for this moment. So where props can access, it is total counters. That's what we have added, which is props dot total counters. So you need to pass the props as a parameter, otherwise it's gonna throw an error. So since this is not a class, we cannot use the word called this. So let's give a try just to see what it will show if we used this dot state dot total counters. So if I save it, you see it's blown up. Cannot read property state undefined. So Say, let's go back. I'm sorry. So it's gonna be props, props. So props dot. Let's read the message. The props is undefined. So we need to pass the props here. And since this is not a class, so we cannot use the word this. Okay, cool. So now let's check it out. So increment, this is 1, 2, you see? So it's total counters. So we have 4 counters. So whatever counters you perform an action, then the total number is going to be added here. So 1, 2, 3, 4. If you delete, the number also decreasing. Once you reset, the number becomes 0. Cool. So that's it. So a final piece of cleanup. So the cleanup we have to do is object restructuring. So as of now, our application is done. So this is the final output of our application, the counter application. So the counter application, what we are trying to achieve, basically, when you increment, it will increment the total number of counter it shows in the navbar. You can perform the reset. It will reset every single value in your counter. You can delete each counter. And if you have one counter, if you increase, so make sure you test it out well that the application is working as per your expectation. Now, just what is object destructuring? So let's try to understand it. What is object destructuring? So as of now, as you see here, we are using props. So since we have only one parameter, in this case, if you have only one parameter, in this case, you can simply pass the attribute by itself without using the props. So you can get rid of that, put that info, save it. Okay, we have an error. So we made a mistake. So check it out. We have it has to be this property. It has to be inside the curly braces, so it knows that it's coming from the parent class. So it's coming from through the props. So total counters, which is good. Let's go back to the counters. So over here, as you see, we have these dot props, these dot props, these dot props. We can kind of customize this object destructuring to make it simpler. How? As you remember the concept we have implemented, we can create a constant value. We can create a constant value out of this dot props dot counter. So it knows the value is coming from this counter. So similar kind of concept we can implement here in the counters. So what can we do? So let's, inside the render method, we can create a constant. So let's say constant, multiple values we can pass it here. So first thing is on reset. Then we have counters. Then we have on delete. Then we have on increment. So this is derived from these dot props. So the property, the props can access all these event or attributes from the app class. So inside the app class, we already have defined this event. Okay. So now let's remove So these dot props all the places. One place, Command D, and the final place is this. Okay, let's save it. You see, so this is the same logic that we have implemented. So from the props, from the property, we derive all this value. Now instead of, so these dot props, we can simply pass on reset, on delete, on increment, and these dot counters, these dot props also replace with counters. So it's much more simpler and cleaner. So let's make sure we didn't break anything. So this is called object restructuring. So let's do a recap. So actually a lot of things we have learned by building this counter app application. First of all, we get to know what is a React component, how we can inherit a React component. So inside a React component, so we create a React component class. So inside the React component class, we have a state. Then we have some event handler. Then using that state and event handler, we learn how to change a value in a state. Then some of the useful JavaScript concept we learn throughout this application development. We learn what is map, we learn what is filter, and we learn how to clone an array, how to clone a value. Then also we have learned what is index of. Then we have understand the hierarchy, how to build, how to develop a application in order so that it has one parent label and all the child can access to that parent and retrieves the information through the props. Also, we understand some of the, we also have learned some of the Bootstrap documentation, that how we can leverage the Bootstrap. So everything pretty much there. So we just need to understand what we need from there and what we need to capture from there. So we can change the color using the Bootstrap class name. Then we also added a navbar from the Bootstrap, and the navbar basically displaying the total counters we have. So last but not least, in the index.js, we added the app class and rendering that apps inside the React DOM.render. So that's the end of the tutorial for React learning for the beginner. So I would highly recommend to practice a lot and make sure you understand the entire concept. So I could have done everything in the first class. So everything we can use, we can leverage the apps.js at the beginning class. But the beauty of understanding and how to make your code nicer, what is the logic, we are moving around piece of code from one class to another class, those importance you're not gonna understand if I do everything correct at the beginning level. So purposefully I created a separate component, and how we can communicate from one component to another component, then how to store all the information data in one single source of truth, then how to invoke those information through a props. We also have learned how to use the React developer tools. That developer tools is really handy just to understand the events and attributes we are declaring in a particular element, how it can be accessible through the props. So in the next video, actually I'm gonna develop an entire website. So it will be a very, it's not gonna be a complicated website. You will have few pages and how we can navigate from one page to another page. Those concepts we're gonna learn just developing a simple web page. Thanks a lot. If you like my video, give a thumbs up. Do subscribe to my channel and click on the bell button so that whenever I upload a new video, you automatically get notification. And also, please share with your friends. Thanks a lot, and I hope it will be really beneficial for all of you who are new into this React learning. Bye, have a wonderful one.